Welcome into Red Raider Recon, Episode 2. I'm Clint Scott. He's Rob Bro.
Today, we're talking about a new offensive coordinator. Former quarterback has worked with the brilliant minds such as Eric Morris and G.J. Kinney. Who is Mac Leftwitch?
For the first time under head coach Joey McGuire, it won't be Zach Kittley calling the offense. Kittley was hired by Florida Atlantic for his first head coaching opportunity. That brought in Mac Leftwitch, who joins Texas Tech's coaching staff after spending the last 2 seasons at Texas State under G.J. Kinney. Leftwitch followed Kinney from Incarnate Word, where he worked up to the OC job there, taking over the offense in 2022. Leftwitch is a Texan through and through. He was born in Denton, played at UTEP, and has had every coaching stop in his young career in the Lone Star State. His offenses are already known for putting up big numbers. In 2022, his Incarnate Word offense scored 51.5 points per game with an offense that gained 8,137 total yards. Up a level at Texas State, his 2 seasons calling the offense were eye-popping. 12,161 total yards, 115 touchdowns, an offense that last season scored 36.5 points per game. He helped set school records for the Bobcats, ramping up the numbers and results since jumping to the FBS level back in 2012. Leftwich has also had sparkling results working with quarterbacks. Taking out the COVID-shortened season, quarterbacks he's worked with have averaged 4,089 total yards and 42 total touchdowns per season. He was also a key piece developing this year's #1 overall draft pick Cam Ward, working with him for 2 seasons as his quarterback coach. His room this year features starter Baron Morton, redshirt freshman Will Hammond, Wake Forest transfer Mitch Griffiths, plus freshman Lloyd Jones III and local product Holden Phillips. He'll also take over an offense that led the Big 12 last season in both points and yards per game.
Thank you, Clint, for bringing us up to speed on who Mac Leftwich is. I'm really excited about the hire. When Zach Kittley left to Florida Atlantic, Zach Kittley for 3 seasons under Joey McGuire, I was probably higher on Zach Kittley at the end than most, or at least the seemingly majority of the fan base, it felt like, on social media at least, which social media, we know, not real, but certainly carries some weight. It's certainly the loudest. So I was higher on Kittley at the end. But then you start reading names, and there's this guy and this program's guy and that program's guy. And then you see Mac Leftwich get hired, and similar to Kittley, very young, but this is a guy who started coaching in college, similar to Kittley, but after his playing career ends early. And once you start looking into him and see the Incarnate Word stuff and the Eric Morris stuff and how successful Eric Morris has been offensively, and then you see now he's with G.J. Kinney, and you kind of learn under his tutelage they've been good at Texas State. I was excited for the hire. I think it's going to be really good. So my initial reaction here was home run.
It's hard not to just initially love the numbers. Now, that's a superficial way to see things, especially when you're jumping up a level. But what he's got that's a little bit different to me is I thought there was a slightly bigger jump to Incarnate Word to Texas State than what you saw with Kittley. But still, that's still neither here nor there, because it is still going to be a mid-major jump to a Division I jump. But still, those numbers are incredible. But I also love, we talk about fit all the time, and we're going to talk about just how much he fits here in just a moment, but I think that will go a long way. But I'm looking at him the same way that you just mentioned with Kittley. He's goes in that 3-year window, and then bang, he's head coach for the first time over at FAU. I think like doable perfect world, because if you were on his perfect world, you're going, all right, Joey McGuire is here for the next 20 years. You win all of these Big 12 championships, and the whole time Leftwich is calling the offense, Wood's working with the defense, all of that. And that's just not how football works, right? So to me, like a doable perfect world is you have him come in probably about the same 3-4 year window, and you have all the success, you see all of these terrific offensive numbers, and then you say, hey, go kill it at Tulane or something like that. And I think when you put in the youth that he has, that's kind of the route that I expect. And I'm expecting really good things. And we also have just that Texas connection, Texas feel that Joey McGuire loves. but I also think is important whenever you're trying to not disrupt the culture that you're setting, and that's part of it. And so before we've seen a down, before we've seen a real play called, 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, and when you ask about fit, one more thing on the reaction. I also liked it because you basically beat out another Big 12 program before Mac Leftwitch. Because at the time, Utah's in heavily.
Yeah.
And so I always look at when you're doing extensions or hiring a coach, who else wants him? Are you hiring a head coach who's been retired for 3 years and nobody's been after him, like the Cowboys did the last cycle? Or are you looking at a coach who has been an assistant for 20 years and nobody's gone after him, like the Cowboys did this cycle? So you've
that
moved
seems
up
like
twice.
A different conversation.
Yeah. The first time he moves up from Incarnate Word to Texas State, he goes with the head coach. But to make this jump, and Texas State in the last 2 years did things that they'd never done.
Records.
Bowl games, wins. They beat Baylor 2 years ago. I think they beat Baylor 3 years ago. No, I think it was 2 years ago. Look, this G.J. Kinney cat is legitimate. Can Mac Leftwich do the same thing at Texas Tech? I think he can. You just look at the fit. The offense that Kitley developed into in year 3, which I think was more suitable moving forward with your style, is what I think Leftwich is coming in as his baseline on. So I think it's a much better fit for Joey McGuire. But I do think it holds true to some of what Texas Tech fans have come to expect.
Well, you look at, again, just to go back to when he fully takes over the offense at Incarnate Word and then 2 years at Texas State and is following G.J. Kinney with that route, you probably go first off like, oh, man, you're going to not be balanced. You're going to come in and you're going to try to throw for all of these yards, and that deep threat in the passing game is certainly a part of it. But I think you overlook just how balanced he's been. And I also, this is kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth because I love his individual work with quarterbacks. And, when you look at guys like Lindsey Scott Jr. and TJ Finley and Jordan McLeod, who all three got better with him. And obviously he has the Cam Ward connection too. And I do think he played a pivotal piece at Incarnate Word for 2 years there, working hands-on with him. For Baron Morton for one season, I love to see, or I'm looking forward to see, what kind of sharpening can he do with an experienced player. But then I'm almost more excited. All right, what are you doing with Will Hammond? How can he progress, hopefully a few years under him? And then some of the freshmen that are on the roster now, and then some of the commits that'll be coming in. What can you do with those guys where hopefully you have a couple of years and it's not just, hey, here's this guy for a season, make him better. And he's done that. But also just to go back, I think if I'm a receiver, I'm pumped about the offense. If I'm a running back, I'm arguably equally pumped.
Because all the running backs.
Yes.
Not just one running back.
Okay.
That we've seen here.
Okay, yeah, let's go here. So if you are a receiver, let's just look at last year for Texas State. Again, it has to transfer over, I get that. But there were 9 receivers that had 10 or more catches. Of those 9, 7 had a 10-yard per catch average. 2 over 14. The other 2 of those 9, 9.7 per catch, 8.1. One of those was their top running back who had 1,000 total yards. So if you're one of the 3 running backs, again, I think you are dreaming of an offense like this. In 2 seasons at Texas State, running backs accounted for 5,223 total yards. 4,369 of those are rushing. So if you're doing quick math there, that's 854 receiving. Ismail Mahdi was far and away their anchor back, but still, you had a second back last season, over 500 yards, 107 total touches, and a third back, over 350 rushing yards, 70 total touches. So how does that work out for you? Where you got 3 young running backs that you're looking to use, and I would be very excited to be in that room right now.
Yeah, I wonder in the football, we'll get back to this in a second, but I wonder in the football room, the running back room, if you're going to carve out roles, or if you're just going to say all 3 of these guys are similar and whoever's in is going to run this play. Or are you going to send Cam Dickey in the short yardage, or because Jacoby Williams and Joyner are, I think, similar in the respect that they probably both do
if you did like a
things.
skill set line, I would go Cam Dickey over here. More, again, this is very vague, but more of the power.
Sure.
Could do more than this, but more of the power guy. Quentin Joyner maybe in the middle, but leaning more towards Jacoby Williams on this side. Is that fair?
If this was college football 26, it'd be power back for Cam,
Yeah.
elusive back for Joyner, and receiving back for Jacoby Williams.
It's really well done.
Yeah, thank you. Going back to the numbers, though, I am also really impressed. You see a bit of a trend here, right? From Incarnate Word to Texas State, you have a lot of passing yards, passing plays. The percentage is like 60-40 pass to run at Incarnate Word. And that's, hey, Cam Ward's our best player. That's the year after Cam Ward. But this guy's the quarterback's our best player. We're going to go with the quarterback. 3,800 yards passing, 37 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, 19 rushing touchdowns, 2,300 rushing yards. That's year one. That's Incarnate Word. 4.7 yards a rush, 6 yards a play. Year two, you go from 34 points a game to 37 points a game. And this is year one at Texas State. And you add 100 yards of rushing. You rush for 33 touchdowns. You're about the same yards per average. Your passing dips a little bit, but you're much more careful with the ball. 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And then year three, you kind of trail even further into the rushing attack. Now you're 55-45, but it's rushing to passing. Now some of this is Jordan McLeod was a runner.
Yeah.
So you're probably calling some passing plays that are turning into run plays. But you're still at 37 points per game. You have 339 first downs. You're 6.5 yards per play. You're over 5 yards a carry in rushing. You rush for 2,700 as a team. You have 27 rushing touchdowns, 31 passing touchdowns, 3,500 yards passing. Those stats right there will win the Big 12 if you have a good defense.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you did last year offensively, not exactly, close to what you did last year offensively. You were not as good per play by about a yard, a half a yard. And you did not run the ball nearly as well because you just had one guy you were hitting over the head with one play, two plays. You had inside zone and Tiger King money 18 or whatever it was. So I just think what he grew into, he's already done all of his growing. Zach Kittley was expected to do his growing at Texas Tech because you go from Bailey Zappi to, hey, let's run the ball in this conference.
Yeah.
This guy's already paid his dues, I think, with G.J. Kinney to say, hey, yeah, let's protect the ball, let's run the ball, and be electric offensively. So I think that trend is really good, and I think he's trended in a way to where he can take what Zach Kittley did last year and improve on that instead of starting over.
You know, if you had just shown me, like, take away the impressive history in the FCS level before you get to Texas State, you just give me those 2 years, something that jumps out to me is something that you noted when you go from Finley to McLeod is they have different skill sets there. And he, I think, maxed out their potential in different ways. And I love that because you would think that you're going to be able to do that from different positions too. And especially though, like when you get into Baron Morton, and this is where I go back to, you know, he's not a finished product, but at the same time, he's an experienced player. He's played a lot of college football. He's much closer than the other guys in the room. You know who he's going to be your starter. So with him, you're going, okay, what are the little things that we can work on to make you really, really good? And some of it might be decision making. Some of it might be reads. And some of it might be, hey, you know, you need to dump this off a lot faster. That's what I see more with him and more of the Finley route than the McLeod route because, you know, designed runs or coaching him like, hey, when you see all this green, that's you. That's what we want you to do. And not that Morton can't use his legs, but if you're going just from the two examples we have at the FBS level, I'm thinking you're coaching it more to Finley than what you are to McLeod. But I like that you had two different guys And I thought you maxed out the potential with two very different skill sets. Like that shows that you can be diverse as a play caller and as a quarterback coach.
And if you're just looking at what he liked to do at Texas State, I watched the Arizona State game and a few others in the last couple of weeks preparing for this episode. And, there is still a lot of, screens to the wide receivers on third down and long. Mm-hmm. You're still going to see some of that. But there's the vertical presence in the offense. And if you're just looking at, if your question is, how does Mac Leftwitch fit with this roster that we know? Reggie Virgil coming in, we don't really know him. How does he fit with this roster that we know? Well, Caleb Douglas is an incredible vertical threat. Mm-hmm. We saw at times Coy Aiken has been a credible vertical threat. So those are two great fits. And if you're just going Mahdi, his running back last year at Texas State, to some of what you're seeing here with even Joyner at USC and Jacoby Williams last year, if you're going to try to get on the outside, hit some inside zones, hit some outside zones, get some counters, that fits their skill set. So even on the initial roster, I think Leftwich, again, is a home run because of fit.
And so I kind of jumped over this a little bit to what you're saying because I went to the running backs just because I feel like the initial reaction might not be so fair, again, to how balanced he's been and how good he's been with the running backs. But, like, the first player I thought of that I'm going, man, he should thrive in this offense is Caleb Douglas.
Yes.
And it just seems like that is a match made in heaven. And then you go into some of the new faces that you've added, like Virgil and Alexander, and I go, okay, well, I love that you have that with Douglas. Aiken has been consistent in his very young career. You piece those two together, and they're only going to help out each other. The more that you have to cover one, obviously you're going to be more open on the other, and you're finding individual matchups and all this stuff, all the football math that you have. So you're looking, okay, who can thrive underneath? Who can run some of those Josh Kelly routes from last year? And I think you've got a lot of potential to have, some of those guys that are new thrive just as much as you will on the outside. But Caleb Douglas, I just think that is, he's already primed just from where he's at in his career to be that explosive number one receiver, hopefully hang around, if not break the 1,000-yard barrier. And I think when you added in the hiring of Mac Leftwitch, to me, it's just like, okay, yeah, he's going to get those numbers. Barring an injury, I just don't foresee that going awry from him as an individual receiver. Now, it's got to obviously combine to team success and all that stuff, but if I picked out one guy that I'm like, man, I would be happy if I was Mac Leftwich to have him, and if I were Caleb Douglas, I'd be happy to have him as my coordinator. Yeah. That's the pairing. So reasonable expectations with, if you jump into numbers, whatever that is to you, what are yours for the offense this year?
I think the reasonable expectation is that you can repeat last year's success in different ways. Mm-hmm. I think if you have 2,100 yards rushing like you did last year, I think that's a little light. I'd probably, if you're just saying, hey, let's say you get, nearly 6,000 yards, I think you'd go heavier to the rushing yards than what Kitley did. But I think you have the reasonable expectation in the Big 12 to get above that 6 yard per play average. I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think it's a reasonable expectation to hit 2,300 rushing yards, to hit 3,500 passing yards, and to score points. And I don't know if you'll have 38 points a game. Like last year, of course, you had 70 against North Texas. So, but even in Big 12 play, you're scoring over 30 points a game. I think that's a reasonable expectation to score 30, 31 points a game in Big 12 play.
Yeah, I went overall. I think you'll hang around 35 a game. And if you look at the 3-year Kitley window, that's right about where that average was in total. Of course, you had the year 2 with all of the injuries, and that was still, I think 27, 28, something like that. I think you can hang overall in 35, and when you get into Big 12 play, it's probably somewhere in between 30 and 32 points per game. And I think if you set like 5,500 for the year, that's like, to me, the baseline goal.
Yeah.
and I think you will be closer to 6,000. And what's crazy is it's almost, we talk about like plug and play players. This almost feels like a plug and play coordinator because he's ready to go. We'll get to some challenges here in just a second, but I think you're coming in and we're not expecting it all, and Coach McGuire is not expecting, and Coach Leftwich is not expecting to go like, well, we'll see what we can do in year one, see how close we can get to those. No, they're ready to go with this offense, and they're not looking for a step back or a hitch or anything like that. And so I don't foresee any of that happening, and I think you'll hit on similar numbers. So with that, if you do go challenges for Leftwich in year one, what are those?
What are those? I'm gonna answer this two ways. I think the challenge for him that I've seen in his offenses, and this is something I could have said for a Texas Tech offensive coordinator since, 2018, 19. We didn't have any tight ends before Matt Wells got here. You have really good tight ends. The number one tight end last year at Texas State had 12 catches for 143 yards and 1 touchdown. Mm-hmm. So just my initial reaction here, challenge would be to figure out how to involve the tight ends.
And you have a couple, you have one, subwoofer. You have one that is a part of 3 NFL tight ends. That's how they were labeled, right?
Right.
And obviously you're adding in one of the top tight end transfers from Louisiana, so you're expecting production from him as well.
Well, and Carlos Miller, we forget from Elon, had like 20 yards a catch.
Yeah. And so for me, I go, okay, was it at Texas State, was it more about the offense or was it more about you didn't have the tight end that you could really do that with? And I'd be lying if I said I went and just watched that position for them. Yeah. And so my hunch with how he's used different positions in different ways, that it would be you didn't trust the tight end talent. And I think you will here. Now, I'm not going to say, well, mark down the tight ends for combined 600 receiving yards between those two or anything like that. But I think he'll find a way to use them, but at the same time acknowledge that I totally agree that's a challenge. And honestly, that fits into one for me is the positive is it certainly feels like you have all of these mouths that you can feed, all of these weapons. Can you do that at this level? And that's the generic, go-to, you are jumping up to the Big 12 from a mid-major. But at the same time, until you see it, I think it's a valid question. And I think part of that is it's not just, hey, can you produce at this level? Can you produce the same way at this level? Can you max out these 3 running backs? Can you have a balanced passing attack with like you have at Texas State and Incarnate Word, where you don't just have a guy and then the numbers are where the numbers are solid throughout, and it made you that much more challenging an offense to stop because you knew there was going to be 2 or 3 guys in the passing game, maybe 3 or 4 guys that you were really going to have to scout and really have to focus on stopping. Can you do that here in the Big 12?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say next. The consistency of opponent is something from Texas State to Texas Tech. This is something that Matt Wells said a lot that really irked me. Okay, even 3 years into his tenure here, he would say, oh yeah, one thing I learned is all these Big 12 teams have quarterbacks. And they all have offensive coordinators that know how to call plays. It's like, yeah, this isn't the Mountain West anymore, Matt. You should have known that before you took the job. So coming from this conference now, I think the Sun Belt's a very good conference. And has some
classic Fun Belt action.
Has some very consistent teams in it. But, you're not going to get Arkansas State or ULM or Southern Miss in back-to-back weeks. Mm-hmm. Even the teams traditionally that I don't think we think of as great football teams, Houston. I think Houston's going to be a credible Big 12 team this year. I think Arizona is going to be a fine football team. I think Kansas, who was a laughingstock for so many years, of this Big 12 season. They're going to be good this year. So I don't think there's any, like it used to, Baylor and Kansas were just like, yeah, when I don't think there's a game on the schedule this year past the non-con where you're like, yeah, that's UCF win.
Yeah.
Because who knows what they're going to be at the end.
I was saying, pick the obvious doormat. Last year, going into the year, everyone was like, Arizona State. Easy.
16th.
Gonna be a cakewalk. They're going to struggle. It is going to be a beatdown every single week.
Killed them.
We know it. They know it.
Murked
There's
them.
no way
Yeah.
that they, I don't know, have a solid season to winning the conference.
Yeah, they might make a bowl game.
Yeah.
No, they went to the playoffs.
If the ball bounces their way, they
Yeah.
might reach 6 wins. And so, I mean, if you're going just off of last year's results, you're going, okay, well, the quote-unquote doormat's going to be who? It is going to be UCF. It's going to be Oklahoma State. It's going to be Utah. And I can see all three of those teams bouncing back and having a solid year. And, I mean, say what you want. Gundy's been doing it forever. Whittingham has been doing it forever. You have a familiar coach, even though it's been a while, at UCF, and it felt like Malzahn just did not maintain that roster very well, and that's why he left on his own accord.
Yeah.
So if you're just going off of that, do you feel really good about saying there's your cakewalk, there's your doormat? I don't know who it's going to be this year.
No.
It'll end up being somebody. Like, if you made me guess, I would go West Virginia. I think that could be messier. But at the same time, am I going to die on that hill? Do I feel good about that pick? Not even a little bit.
But even, okay, so when Ollie Gordon's rolling, right, in his Doak Walker season, and Oklahoma State's on their way to a Big 12 championship, and they're killing everybody, they go to Orlando, and UCF struggling to make a bowl game, not very good, and they beat Oklahoma State by, 40?
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff happens in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And, Kansas beat Texas in triple overtime. And that's a Sarkisian Texas team before Leipold really got it going. So in the Big 12, you can't take off weeks. And I'm not saying you particularly can in the Sun Belt because I do respect that conference. Nobody respects the Sun Belt more than I do. But it's a Hall of Fame conference. But I do think that the Big 12 is the next level. Mm-hmm. And that he'll have to be prepared and be consistent every week.
Okay, so let me ask you this. From what you saw with last year's offense, what do you want to see improve specifically with this year's unit under Leftwich?
Consistency.
Check.
You can't be great in the first quarter and the fourth quarter and win a Big 12 championship. You got to be really good in all four quarters. So that would be one. Secondly, this is something that I've hated since Cliff. And I've not watched enough Texas State football to know if Mac Leftwitch does this. But the big play tempo into inside zone to set you up for second and long that Kitley and Cliff did so often here at Texas Tech kills me. I would like to improve that. I would like to have a little more nuanced tempo instead of, big play, time for tempo. And it's like, inside zone. And it's like, okay, well, now it's second and long. So let's just take a second and come up with a good play, right?
I think we're saying the same thing in a different way because we totally agree on the first one. The second thing for me is you hit on third down conversions at a really good rate. I think you were third in the Big 12 overall, second in Big 12 play, somewhere around there. The problem is you were far and away attempting the most third downs.
Yeah.
And part of that is you're going off the book, and for certain things, you have a most likely, as long as you're getting positive yards, you're going to get another shot on fourth down. I don't want to see you have to do that, though.
Yeah.
And part of that, too, is just doing, to me, throwaway plays. Where you're, starting behind the 8 ball in the next possession because really first down is starting on second down and you're having to play catch up that way, and then it feels like you've just wasted a big play from the one before. And so, to me, I would love to see that number cut down. That doesn't mean I don't want to see tempo. It doesn't mean, obviously I want to see the big plays like I think this offense is designed for. But I want to see you bounce back from those and continue to use them. And I think that's where you had some of your Jekyll and Hyde last year too, because you would have quarters where you'd put up a bunch of points, but it's not like you didn't have big plays in the other quarters. Just felt like you didn't maximize those drives.
Yeah.
And so that drove me up the wall, and hopefully that's something that you can kind of nix this year to an extent. I mean, if you're running tempo, everybody's going to have that where you just go too fast on a play and it doesn't go your way. But when you're doing that every single game, that's where you have that inconsistent offense.
If it came down to it, you might say, hey, Joey, what was your deciding factor in hiring Mac Leftwitch? He'd probably give you some answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, he came in with a plan. He's a strong head on his shoulders. He knows what he's doing. He's energetic. I like that. He goes fast. I like that. Like, no, really.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you hire Mac Leftwich? Well, Clint, he's 66% over the last 2 years on fourth down. And it's like, oh, well, surely, Joey, they went for it, 6 times and got it,
Mm-hmm.
a certain amount of those, 4 times, right? That's 66%. No. 26 times they went for it on fourth down last year. Sorry, 23. 23 times. And Texas Tech, who goes for it all the time, went for it 29 times at 48%.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you have a little bit of a fourth down wizard. Maybe G.J. Kinney was just calling them in the right spots where they're really short yardage, and you had a bunch of them for some reason. But you're also 88% in the red zone, which you were really good in the red zone last year, contrary to popular belief. So I think those two things also are going to loom large, that maybe you have a little bit of a wizard in coming up with a fun play on fourth down instead of just, again, trying to get inside zone on 4th and 1 when everybody in the country knows you're running Taj Brooks up the middle.
Yeah. As much as I love Taj Brooks.
And he was successful in that a lot.
Yes. That's something that maybe doesn't go under a challenge, goes under the intrigue folder.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now what are you doing without Taj Brooks this year? Is there? I mean, Baron Morton needs to command the offense. That's the easy pick. But who of the weapons? And the other thing too, a lot of this hinges on the offensive line play. That's understated.
Yeah.
But yet a very known quantity when it comes to winning percentages.
I've got a hot take on Taj Brooks and the running backs in 25. But I'm gonna save it for the running back episode.
But I'm
It's a
interested.
tease.
I'm interested to see when you get into those, important 3rd and shorts, games on the line. You're trying to have a game-winning drive. Who are you turning to? Is that a receiver? Is it a running back? Is there, does someone step up from that group and develops into that role? That'll be something that is will have to happen, because you're going to have go-to guys. And you're going to have some close games in the Big 12 this year, and you're going to have some drives like that. We all know this. Who does that end up being?
Right.
Another question. Let's go to, ready for fan question of the week?
Ba, 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 ba.
Every week we have a fan-submitted question of the week. That is the official theme. Do it again.
Ba, 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 ba. I don't think I did the same way.
That's good enough. 3rd time just for me to remember it.
Ba, 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 ba.
On Twitter, @ClinterhamHC.
How do you spell that?
CLINTERHC. It'll be right here on the video. Josh always puts it in. @RobBroShow.
Yes.
Or @T973. Just make sure you tag Red Raider Recon, and you can submit a question as well. This week's question is pretty fitting because it pertains to the offense.
You can also comment on this YouTube video.
Also,
Hit that like button, hit subscribe.
Subscribe!
Go ahead.
Smash that like button. This week's question about the offense: are you worried about unproven players being leaned on at the skill position?
Yeah, who's unproven?
A running back, certainly.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so.
As the lead back, maybe so, yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I think as being the anchor of a running attack, yes, you have
Certainly.
unproven there. I think you have a couple of guys who are unproven at this level
Okay.
with the receivers. Now, the nice thing is you have a couple headline. If, let's say, Virgil didn't work out, you've got a couple of really good headliners in the Big 12 with Douglas and Aiken. But for Alexander coming in,
At this level,
at this level, for Virgil coming in at this level, subwoofer. And again, this isn't with the weapons, but you could ask the same thing about some of the offensive line. When you're looking at some FCS pieces that you are hoping are going to be really good Division I, FBS, Big 12 players at their
we really
position.
haven't talked about the offensive line yet.
But I do think there is some unproven. But am I worried? No.
No. I think if you have any kind of failures offensively this year, I wouldn't pin it on the talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're very talented. Now maybe you didn't mesh well. Maybe you have some injuries or otherwise at key positions. But if that front line and even the second line starters and the two deep are performing this year, I think you'll be able to move the ball in the Big 12. We have the best offense in the Big 12. I don't know. You kind of look at some of the offenses. I think Colorado will be much different. Obviously, BYU. We have no idea what's happening with BYU right now.
I think you have.
I think Arizona State is going to be a solid offense, but they didn't. I mean, they went with defense really last year.
I think you have some wild cards of like, what does the Kansas offense look like this year?
Yeah.
What does the Kansas State offense look like this year?
Is Caden Salter, really good for Colorado from Liberty?
Let's see. Trying to run through. I mean, what is Baylor's offense this year?
Baylor could be the best offense in the Big 12. So I think you'll be a top 5 offense. We've been very highly spoken of Mac Leftwitch today. If there are any negatives, I really haven't found them. I think this is a really good hire. Now, maybe youth. But could you say he's inexperienced? I mean, you said in the video early on, he played quarterback at UTEP. He played at the Jones Stadium against Patrick Mahomes. He immediately, gets injured, goes to coaches high school, gets brought back up. He's been in the collegiate game. He's coached with Eric Morris. He's coached with G.J. Kennedy. I mean, this guy's prepared. Oh, well, he's 30. Yeah, but he's been in coaching for 10 years.
Right.
He's got a decade of experience. And he's brought in a few guys. He brought in his Lindsey Scott, the quarterback, to be a quarterback coach here. So I think there's enough familiarity. I don't think the offense is drastically different from what these guys have been running. I don't think it's going to be hard to pick up. Maybe there's some new language. But it's not like you're going from the air raid to the power I wishbone flex wing T. You're not doing that. So I don't think there's going to be any kind of big learning curve. I think you'll be able to replicate and improve what you did last year.
This may be unfair, but I mean, every year you're trying to improve something, but you're also trying to add wrinkles, right?
Sure.
This feels like as close of a hire where you're in the, there may be some different terminology, you're doing slightly different formations, but for the guys that were here last year, there should be a lot of things that make sense and click immediately and should have through the spring.
Yeah.
And so it's not quite well. It's like you're just adding wrinkles to last year's offense, but it's closer to that than all right, guys. We're wiping away everything. Also, it's just two examples, but he's also already coached and coached well against 2 Big 12 teams. You mentioned that was a Week 1 win at Baylor where they put up 41 points, and then they lose at home to Arizona State by 3 last year, but still. Really well, and we're right there. And so I think, like you said, we'll get there. We'll get through the season. We'll get through about Week 5, Week 6 probably and go like, okay, there's the weakness right now. But I don't think it's anything that will hamstring you. It's just something that you're not going to be a perfect team.
Yeah.
And if you are, well, undefeated season, look out college football playoff. Yeah. We'll see Georgia in the championship game or Ohio State.
And this is, And this is a series that we're going to do all summer. So, we're talking about Mac Leftwich today. We're talking about all these offensive players, but when you talk about the running backs, we're going to go back to Mac Leftwitch and say, are you going to use multiple running backs in a single play? Are you going to have some 2-back sets, some 3-back sets? Are you going to be able to fold in all this talent you have when you go talk about the wide receivers and the tight ends? Are you going to have 2 tight ends playing with John Carlos Miller and Terrence Carter? Are you going to have 1 tight end on the field? Are you going to run ace? Are you going to run 23 personnel? Are you going to be able to do all this? So we'll get into all the minutia of it, but the bottom line is he had 5 receivers put up some decent numbers, 3-4 running backs put up some decent numbers. I mean, this is a guy that spreads the love at Texas State, so I don't expect anybody to be transferring out due to, well, maybe there's a few names that might, but we'll talk about those as we get through the roster.
Next week, that is going to wrap up our Mac Leftwitch episode. Another fun one. Thanks for hanging out with us. They're all fun here at Red Raider Recon. We're going to have more fun ones. All of them are going to be fun, including next week. Very popular topic. We're going to be talking about the quarterbacks. We'll see you next week with more Red Raider Recon.